So I know for the past few months you have seen my wacky antics in structured PvP and World versus World, and I think it's time that we talked about it. PvP is one of the most staple game modes that you can have in most MMOs across the board. There has to be some element of player versus player. Well, I don't really mean have to, but you get the point. It's a very important aspect of gaming. I mean, heck, PvP is one of the reasons that I stay with a game for as long as I do. I find such interest in it. It gets my adrenaline going. I'm excited to play it. Nothing beats the feeling of absolutely outplaying another player. Probably the most important aspect of player versus player that I look at is fairness, meaning that balance and accessibility within any given game is so good that true skill can shine above the rest. You're not relying so much on the overpoweredness of a specific ability or skill, rather the knowledge and reactions and planning of the player, the skill of the player. Because let's be serious, we all hate getting sucked into the turbo blender that is the Dragon Hunter. But let's talk about Guild Wars 2. Structured player versus player has got to be one of the best iterations of PvP that I have ever seen. Now, I say this as the casual enjoyer of a video game. I am not high ranked, I don't participate in tournaments or anything like that. I just play to have fun, because honestly that's what I believe video games are for. If you didn't know, structured PvP in Guild Wars 2 equalizes everything. Gear, none of that really matters. You choose a pendant, it gives you the stats that you want, and you're good to go. So there is some fairness in that sense of someone who may or may not have ascended level gear or just greens. The build capabilities and the skill requirement to do well in PvP is, in my opinion, the epitome of what PvP should be. The game mode is a ton of fun. Heck, most of my recent videos have all been about just having fun with strange builds and doing well enough on them. Now, granted, we're not going up to the highest tier of ranked combat, but we're able to have some fun and try something new. It falls down to the skills that you choose, the trait builds that you have, and your ability to execute on your plan. In any game that includes player versus player, there has to be some sort of balance with it, as being unbalanced will lead a specific exploit or a single ability carrying a person higher and higher in player versus player matches, whereas someone who might be just as skilled and chose a different path doesn't do well. It ruins the fun. And that fun is going into a player versus player match with your delicately crafted abilities and skills and just going to town on people, you know, having a lot of fun. I mean, I did an entire turret build on my engineer, core engineer, and did well and had a lot of fun with it. Now, of course, there are certain professions that are a lot stronger and do a lot better. Of course, I bring up the Dragon Hunter. In most conquest modes, Dragon Hunter is, you're gonna see one almost every single match. But the main point is that they're not ridiculously overpowered that you can't counterplay. Guild Wars 2 structured PvP is, in my opinion, the perfect iteration of player versus player in an MMO. Everything is fairly balanced. There is really less emphasis on gear and more emphasis on skill. That's how the game should be played. I believe that's how the game should be played, 100%. Quick dad joke for you to smash that like button. I used to run a dating service for chickens. Unfortunately, I just couldn't make hens meet. Not gonna lie, I kind of miss doing dad jokes. Now, I gotta talk about probably one of the most unique game modes across any MMO I have ever seen. And of course, I am specifically speaking of World versus World. If you haven't played this game mode yet, it is essentially the Wild West of player versus player. Holy crap. Those gear equivalencies, they go straight out the window. You show up with whatever gear you're wearing on your shoulder. So if you have the best gear in the game and you go up against someone who just hit level 80, oh, that fresh level 80 is going to have a rough time.
You're gonna have a bad time.
Probably the most interesting aspect of this game mode is the sheer amount of players that can be doing the same map, the same Zerg, the same siege, all at the same time. It's incredible. You're sieging a castle and you have 100 players at your back and there's only a handful of defenders doing their best. It's a great feeling. When you're up on top of the ramparts shooting off mortar shots at a clumped up group of enemies, it feels amazing. When you get killed for the 10th time by the same thief, it gets annoying, but it's still kind of fun. Now, to be fair, it doesn't do new players that much justice. If you don't have a bunch of gear and if you are unfamiliar with what is going on, you're kind of left in the dark. Luckily, creators such as Vallun, such as Muckluck, Mighty Teapot, I mean, there's plenty of people out there giving out world versus world guides, so you can figure your way out going into the Wild West. The gearing process is, of course, slow and you will die a lot, but honestly, it's a rewarding feeling joining a group of 100 players and just running around, having fun. Well, literally running. Everyone else has the war claw. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, when you successfully 1 versus 1 a roaming enemy player or successfully defend a tower from a siege, it's a pretty damn good feeling. Now, of course, we are getting ready to jump into a new expansion, and with that, we are bringing in a handful of new elite specializations, which is definitely going to stir the pot as far as player versus player is concerned. Now, I believe that player versus player and world versus world need to be highlighted, especially with the expansion bringing in a plethora of new players, or players who have experienced the game and didn't get too far into it. They, in my opinion, have to experience the PvP within this game. It is phenomenal, and I'm kicking myself for not jumping into it sooner. It's a core staple to the game, and I believe it just needs a brighter light shined on it. Just avoid the chat. What are your thoughts on world versus world or structured PvP? Tell me in the comment section down below. If you want to see my journey to get my Warclaw, you can click here. Or if you're interested in some of my meme-tages, you can click right here. Regardless of your choice. Stay caffeinated, folks.